Okay, so welcome to today's class. Today's class is on light and sound. The first thing we're going to look at or hear is the sound. You'll notice at the start of this video I use this, a clapperboard. And a clapperboard has two main purposes. One of the purposes is to give the editor in the post-production suite information about what exactly the shot is about. So what exactly this clip is, where it was shot, when it was shot, what it was shot with. Here I've just given some basic information on what the production is. This is my second take of it, and that it was shot by me. Hopefully it doesn't take another take. The other thing this does is helps to sync up the audio. Okay, it helps to sync up the audio. In most fiction film productions, chances are where you have the camera positioned isn't exactly the same place where you want the microphone positioned. And often these are two different departments, the camera department and the lighting department. So at the moment what I'm using is the scratch audio, which is generally like not very good quality audio, which is going directly into the camera at the moment. And this is generally audio that you only want to use for referencing on syncing up with the clapperboard, which I'll explain in a minute. I'm also wearing this small lavalier mic down here, and the lav mic should give me a much clearer recording of my voice. So what I want to do is match up, and it's being recorded into a Zoom H6. So it's being recorded onto a completely separate device from the camera. So what we want to do is match up the camera audio with the Zoom recording with the lavalier mic plugged in. Now, often editing suites have an automatic function for this, or an ability to sync up audio and video. There's also programs or plugins you can get like Pluralize, which will help you to do this. However, if things are recorded correctly, and they always should, as was demonstrated at the start of this video, syncing up should be relatively simple. All you're looking for is in the waveform for the camera with the scratch audio, and on the Zoom recorder or the audio recorder is a big spike in the sound, which is achieved with this. The process for doing this is that you should roll camera, roll sound, and they should both start recording within like 20 seconds of each other, roughly, pretty close to each other, so the file should be somewhat the same size. And you should keep recording until the director says cut. Once they say cut, it means that the files will all be about the same size on the other end. So instantly when you bring them into Premiere Pro, before you even listen to anything or look at anything, you'll know roughly by their size if they were recorded at the same time, unless they recorded, somebody made a mistake and kept the audio recorder going or the camera recorder going, which generally shouldn't happen. Then you want to look on the waveform for the scratch audio, which is on the camera, for a big spike in the audio, which is generally achieved by there being silence in the room, a clap of a clapperboard, and then silence again. And you should notice this because this should be very loud and always generally near the start of the clip. You'll also hear the setup of the shot as that takes place. You then want to go to your Zoom recorder, Zoom recording with your lav microphone, and you want to look to see where the big spike is there. And then visually, you're just matching up the waveform for the camera and the sound. And by doing this, you can then mute your scratch audio because its job's done. The only purpose it had was for the ability to sync. Note that is almost, it's not impossible, but it's incredibly challenging to sync up audio with your eye. To sync up a video clip and an audio clip and try and get them to match this with your eye, it's very challenging because your brain processes audio and video at audio and visuals at different times. So it is important that you do this process. If done right, it should take you 5 seconds to sync up an audio and video clip. If done wrong, it will probably take you minutes. But times that by 10 shots, 50 shots, 100 shots, 500 shots, depending on the size of your production, that's going to be an incredible amount of time spent, or if you look at it, lost, due to the inefficiency of a production crew. So using something like this is really important. Now we're going to talk about lights, and we're going to look at the 3-point lighting system. What we're going to do is I'm going to talk about the lighting setup that I have here, which uses a 3-point lighting system and additional light to blow out the background. I'm going to explain these lights, and then you're going to intercut the B-roll, which I will shoot, with the different lights. So what that means is I'm going to show you what it's like just to have the key light, and then you will overlay that footage. I'm going to show you what it's like just to have the fill, and you will overlay that footage. I will show you what it's like to just have the backlight, and you will overlay that footage. And I will show you what it's like to turn off the additional light here at the back. So as you know by now, there is a key system for lighting, a foundational basis for any lighting setup, which is the 3-point lighting setup, or the 3-point lighting system. Remember, it's not about the amount of light, but it's 3 points of light and the directions of the lights, and they all do different jobs. So if you look here, I'm a wee bit too warm on one side, but it's kind of hard sort of setting up my own face for the recording today, but generally it's not so bad. I have a key light on one side of me, and if you want, I would like you to overlay the footage now of the key light. Now I have the fill light. If you could overlay the footage of just the fill. I have my backlight, or what it's also known as her light. If you could overlay the footage of just the her light. And we've got our additional light here. As you see, I'm in our E3 studio, and I've blown out the background with a big light. You can kind of see here, there's a bit of the curtain that's visible. But what I've done is I've adjusted the exposure, so I've got a very wide open aperture, which has given me quite a shallow depth of field, which made it quite challenging when shooting myself. So I had to bring the gain up a bit and close the aperture slightly so I could have a much more manageable depth of field between me and the camera. And then what I've done is put a big light shined on the background. This is the light on the background, and then this is what it's going to look like without the light on the background. So overlay the shot without the background light. Now, what makes this light really interesting is that it's a very strong light, which I'm going to show you and talk about in a minute. And by bouncing that light off an extremely reflective surface, like the big bright curtains here, it helps to get rid of all the creases within the curtains. So in the previous shot, you'll notice that it's like a wrinkly grey kind of looking curtain. But when you smash a lot of light on it and expose effectively the 3-point lighting structure, or the 3-point lighting, or if you can, delete that from this clip, and I'll start from the start. No need to restart camera. What you will have seen there is that without the light, you kind of got a greyish looking wrinkly curtain. Now the curtain is white and it should be pure white, but still with time it kind of gets slightly aged. But by stretching the curtain out and trying to make it a flush surface, haven't been able to do it entirely here. I'd need some additional clips. And shining a very strong light like this Kino flow I've got behind me, which I'm going to show you in a minute, that enables me to blast a lot of light and completely overexpose the background. And by completely exposing over the background, it creates what's known as an infinity wall, which kind of just, I thought for this shot, makes it a wee bit more interesting rather than kind of just having a wrinkly curtain behind me. The other thing I could have done is used a black curtain, because the studio has 2 sets, and a black curtain would have looked a bit neater. But I thought the infinity wall would be an interesting test for today. Now, we're going to look at the Kino flow and the effects light. In this shot, this is where you're going to separate the audio and the video and just put over the visuals of the 3-point lights. I'm going to stand here and I'm going to turn off each individual light. It's entirely up to you to know which light is which. Next light. Or like 2, we'll call it. Moving on to light 3. Don't worry, I'm aware that these will have jump cuts. These will have jump cuts. That's okay. Light 3. And we'll turn the lights back on. Light 3 and 2. And all 3 lights in the 3-point lighting system. I think it was more like that. This shot will also be the shot of the without the backlight or the curtain. The additional light put in the background to blow it out for the infinity wall. Lights we have in the college. It is the KinoFlow Diva Light 21. What makes this light so interesting is that it can serve as a really powerful key or fill light, in that it is a massive LED panel which is naturally diffused, and you can change the color temperature of this light without needing to add additional gels. One of the benefits of using LED technology is the ability to manipulate or change the color temperature of a light. The other thing that we like this light for here in E3 is its ability to change effects. We often call it the effects light rather than the KinoFlow Diva Light 21 because that's one of the key purposes we use for it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to explain some of the effects and you are going to overlay them when I speak about them. So, the kind of effects that this panel does, if I go into mode, and this was the light also, by the way, it was a really powerful white light which helped blow out the background. But what it also can do is the effects function, which is very cool. And this is the kind of thing we want you to be using next year. So we go in, general, and it can have all sorts of different functions. If we go to effects, it can have a fire function, so it replicates a fireplace. Functions to replicate whether you're watching like sports or movies. It has like a blue, white, and red function, which sort of emulates the police. This is a really fun light and has lots of really practical functions when it comes to shooting fiction production, because it gives you the ability to create props or adapt the mise-en-scène in a way, or imply something without the need of additionally doing it. You know, here in E3, we can't bring in a police car into the studio. We can't make an actual fire in case the building burns down, but we can emulate that look and feel with this light. Also, things like TVs can become a challenge because it could be quite sporadic. So we can, in the lighting, or maybe the sound, or maybe it makes a buzz for the microphones. So this LED panel gives us the ability to emulate that light and give the impression of that. Okay, and that's the Kino Flow Diva Light 21.